Hi, I'm Maria Langworthy, part of the Open Education Analytics team at Microsoft Education. Open Education Analytics has 4 components. This video talks about how we are applying principles of responsible AI to learning analytics and the use of AI in education. Ensuring that data analytics and AI are used by education systems in responsible and ethical ways is of critical importance if investments in these areas are to succeed and to be sustained. Building trust in your data and analytical approaches will be an essential part of your analytics and AI journey for your education system. The teaching and learning data managed by teachers, schools, and education systems is a precious resource. It must be managed in ways that serve the interests of learners and learning. But there are many points in the learning analytics process at which the risk of unethical or inappropriate use of data are high. Some of these questions and these scenarios explain these risks. There are many points of failure in the development of an analytics and AI system, and you have to ask the right questions to ensure those risks are mitigated or addressed. Microsoft is deeply committed to the ethical and appropriate use of data and AI, both in its own products and in how we advise our customers to use data. We want us all to be on the right side of history, avoid ethical mistakes, and ensure that we have a solid framework to guide our journeys in learning analytics and AI. So Microsoft created and published its responsible AI principles for its own first-party product development. And through Open Education Analytics, we're applying these to education scenarios. Fairness is an example of this. It means that AI systems should treat everyone in a fair and balanced manner and not affect similarly situated groups of people in different ways. Let's look at the example of the transparency principle. This means that the way any AI model works has to be explained, communicated, and users need to understand the systems through professional development or training on how to use them. They also need to be able to continuously give feedback and correct the systems. For example, in an AI system that provides learning recommendations to help personalize students' learning, students should be asked to correct and give feedback on those recommendations to improve and continuously correct the system. These responsible AI principles from Microsoft are well aligned with those published by UNESCO and the OECD that provide guidance to education systems. As part of Open Education Analytics, we're working in collaboration with education system partners, developing a process to apply these principles to education scenarios. The process centers on defining a use case that aligns data and analytics decisions with the end goal of the education scenario sought. Many different education scenarios can be enabled by use cases, from developing personalization to providing AI-driven dashboards to identifying students, classrooms, or schools that need additional supports. The modern data estate established through Open Learning Analytics provides the environment where these scenarios can be enabled. But there is a risk of data lakes becoming data swamps that have huge amounts of data that are not well managed or governed. The use case process defines how the modern data estate can be used for specific scenarios. It's the map that leads the team on a successful journey between data and enabling scenarios. The use case should not be developed in isolation by data or engineering teams. It needs to involve stakeholders who provide and use the data, such as students, parents, teachers, and others who would be affected by the analytics. They need to be involved in the entire process. We have developed a use case template to guide an analytics team through this process, starting with clearly defining the problem to be solved with data, aligning with the needs of learners, and the identification of potential risks associated with the use case. The use case template asks all the questions that need answered for responsible AI principles to be addressed, from whether datasets are inclusive of all groups, what privacy and anonymization needs to be met, who should have access to secure datasets and visualizations, and what assumptions are made in the analytical modeling. Most importantly, the use case determines how the data should be managed through the modern data estate architecture and ensures alignment between the process, permissions, and end goals of specific learning analytics and AI scenarios. Through Open Learning Analytics, we're also using newly developed solutions to ensure that responsible use of AI, such as FairLearn. FairLearn can test subgroups such as gender to see if the AI model is treating these groups fairly. This is just one of the ways in which we're operationalizing the principles of responsible AI through open education analytics. All of this is being built into the Open Education Analytics community, which is published on GitHub, so that any education system that uses these resources can follow best practices around the responsible use of data and AI for education. And we're working with our community of education system partners to develop and democratize these best practices as we accelerate learning analytics and AI. We look forward to continuing this journey with all of you.